Is being in a common law relationship basically the same as being married? Technically, no. Both are considered spousal relationships, but marriages are legally binding partnerships. Common law relationships are de facto unions based on how long a couple has been living together. And what qualifies as common law and what rights you have differ federally and provincially. Fun fact, Canada has the highest rate of common law couples in the G7. So there you go. For the federal government, couples qualify as common law spouses if they've been living in a conjugal relationship for 12 consecutive months or as soon as they have a kid, whether that be by birth or adoption. So what do you get when you become a part of a de facto union? Access to certain tax benefits only offered to spouses. You're eligible to be a beneficiary on your partner's medical insurance. CPP survivor benefits if your partner passes away. You can sponsor your partner's immigration into Canada if you're a citizen or permanent resident and they're not. Just remember that to get these benefits, you have to register your status with the Canada Revenue Agency. If you don't, there's potential for penalties and tax fraud allegations. And that's not great. So now let's look at it provincially. The additional rights you get when in a common law relationship change from province to province. Because that's Ontario outside my window, I'm gonna use that as my example, but just know that this might change depending on where you live. Remember how federally you had to live together for at least a year or just have a kid together? In Ontario, it's 3 years without a kid, or if you have a child together and are in a relationship of some permanence. And some permanence is determined on a case-by-case basis by the courts. Here are some of the similarities between common law and married couples. Common law spouses may not have to pay sales tax when buying assets from one another, like a car. If your partner is ill and unable to make their own decisions, like if they're in a coma, for example, you can apply to make health decisions for them. But that's not automatic and may require a power of attorney or court order. And you're entitled to ask for spousal support if you separate. And that's what they have the same. But the differences between common law couples and married couples really come into play when those unions dissolve. When a married couple separates, they go through something called equalization, where their assets are fairly divided between the two of them. That doesn't mean splitting everything 50-50. It just means that each spouse has an equal right to what was accumulated during the marriage. For example, if one person came into the marriage with a house, the spouse who didn't own the home would be entitled to half the value the property increased by during the marriage. But equalization doesn't apply to common law couples. Every asset that isn't officially shared between the two of them goes to whoever originally it belonged to, which means I get all my Beanie Babies. If you owned the home that you and your partner lived in, they have no automatic legal claim to any of its value. Now, if your common law spouse felt they contributed to your property or wealth without fair compensation, they can claim unjust enrichment and you might have to pay whatever the courts decide they're owed. But outside of that, what's yours is yours. This also means you have no right to any of their stuff when they die unless you both owned it or they explicitly left it to you in their will. The upside is because you're not legally tied, it's a lot easier to get out of a common law union compared to a marriage. No expensive or lengthy divorce, just move away from each other for 90 days and it's done. One quick and obvious caveat about kids. According to provincial child support guidelines, if you have children with someone, you have a responsibility for their care, regardless of your marital status or if you even live together. Okay, so let's say you decided to skip marriage and go common law. How do you protect yourself? I know it's not the most romantic thing in the world, but the first thing you should do is create a cohabitation agreement, a contract, to outline the terms of your partnership and possible separation. Stuff like what responsibilities are you sharing? How are you splitting bills and expenses? How will you be dividing assets in case of a breakup? What would you both consider unjust enrichment? The only things you can't include are terms for custody or care of your children. Then you can either grab a lawyer or 2 witnesses to sign off on it and make it official. And you should update or review the agreement at least once a year just to make sure you're on the same page. Past that, have an up-to-date will so you can leave your partner whatever assets you want, and a power of attorney to make health and financial decisions for you in case you're incapacitated. And that's what a common law relationship looks like compared to a marriage. If you have any other questions about things you feel you should know, leave them in the comments and I will make a video about them. I'll see you guys later. Bye.